transfuge. Hey guys, welcome back to Triple F Shooting. It has been a minute. That's about all the excuse I'm going to give is none. So, been a little while. Glad to be doing a video again. And today struggled with the title a little bit, but I think we're going to call it like my concealed carry journey or some concealed carry do's and don'ts, whatever you want to call it. But I've been carrying concealed for around 10 years now, and as you can see, I've run through a few different things. Before we get started, a couple of caveats. I am about 5'10", and I weigh about 150 pounds. So what I say here is not going to apply to everybody. Different body types are going to have different carry positions that are more comfortable. I have tried quite a few. There's a lot I haven't tried. I am no friggin' expert. I'm just some guy that has carried for a while and found a few different things that I like and some stuff I really don't. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. Otherwise, you don't have to listen to me. This is just a bunch of goof talk for funsies. So, starting off, the first thing that I ever carried, I've already done a video over it, but that would be this Smith & Wesson J-frame. Started out with this guy. I think that my thinking at the time was I had shot one before. It wasn't awful. I was decently accurate with it. It's very light. I didn't really worry about capacity, obviously, because you only get 5 rounds. And I really like the fact that there's no safety, but I have a very long double action trigger pull that's going to keep this thing from going off unless I mean it. The trigger pull is good enough that I can make decent hits, and that's what I carried. Now, I don't have a couple of the holsters that I initially used for this thing just because I've changed what I've done with it and those holsters are no longer with me. But the very first thing I ever carried this in was an outside the waistband, like pancake style, on my 4 o'clock leather holster. That was okay if you wore a long enough shirt or jacket or something. Otherwise, even with a very short little gun, this thing was sticking out somewhere just below my belt line, and you'd see it if you're paying enough attention. With that, I should note that at the time, you might be able to see the jeans and belts and stuff on the table. I was wearing whatever frickin' belt. So something like this, or just a thin leather, you know, like dress belt, whatever it was, and regular blue jeans, Levi's, whatever I happen to have, but nothing terribly special. That worked fine with a very light gun and outside the waistband. Really didn't change a whole lot. If I carried spare ammo, it was on something like this speed strip. I never really jacked around with the like HKS style speed loaders for a 5-shot revolver. They didn't carry in a pocket super great without being kind of bulky, so I just like the speed strips better than loose ammo, so that's what I did. I carried that for a long time, years and years. Essentially, carried that until I started to convince my girlfriend, now my wife, that shooting was kind of fun. This is her Kimber Sapphire. It's in a video with her talking about it that we did very early on. But this is a 9mm commander size aluminum 1911. This is not meant to be carried. It's very pretty, and they don't really make these much anymore that I'm aware of. I think you can still get them, but not sure how many are around. She liked to shoot this gun. We would go shooting, and she would shoot this, and I would shoot my J-frame. I obviously would not do as good with the J-frame as I could do with this commander size 1911. So I started to think, wow, I shoot a lot better with that 9mm, and I have more rounds than I do with this J-frame. So I went way overboard, and this thing is here because it's kind of a placeholder, and bought a commander size Dan Wesson CCO. I don't think they make that anymore. Basically, it was an officer size grip frame, so a little bit shorter than this, so it concealed fairly easily, with a commander length barrel, but it was in 45 ACP. So I've upped from 5 rounds to 7 rounds and gone from 38 to 45 ACP. So great gun, awesome trigger. It was kind of expensive, like $1,200–$1,300, and 45 ACP out of a 20-something 8-ounce gun was a little bit stompy, but it shot great. And I carried that. Let's see if I can give you any idea. I don't have that holster anymore or that gun anymore, but I carried that again somewhere around here, cocked and locked. So doing that is when I pretty quickly found out that you need a better belt to carry any weight whatsoever. If it weighs more than this thing, which was 15 ounces loaded, and it did, it was somewhere around 30 some odd ounces with that 7-round mag in it. I started to notice my pants were sagging a little bit. It was harder to carry regularly. I also still wearing regular Levi's with no stretch or anything. So that led to a couple things that I figured out. You either, if you're going to carry full-time all the time, it's actually more comfortable in the waistband to up your pants size a little bit. That kind of sucks because if you don't have that gun in your pants, you have some slack room, you're going to have to tighten your belt up a little bit, whatever. But I upped my pant size to take care of that in the waistband gun. I also went to a better belt. At that time, I bought one of the Bigfoot gun belts, which is essentially looks like this, but it has spring steel inside it. Made it quite a bit thicker, but it had no flex whatsoever. Like you couldn't do any of that with that Bigfoot gun belt. However, the belt itself, the buckle was huge. The belt was super thick, so you actually gained like this big ring around your midsection with it. But it still concealed well and carried the weight. So I carried that for probably 2 or 3 years. During that, I also had a CZ PO1. This is a Beretta, I know that, but I had the CZ PO1. This is just kind of a placeholder because it's similar double single action, a little bit larger, but not much. That CZ PO1 was a little thicker than that Dan Wesson and a little harder to hide, but in the winter, I would wear it in a very similar holster on my back, one of those hybrid. It was a crossbreed, I think, and again, would wear it somewhere around this region in the winter, because why not? You get, in that gun, you got 15 rounds. It was a 14-round mag plus 1 in the chamber. I really like the double single action for the sake of my own safety. That one was a decocker only on the PO1, so I would carry it basically safety off, didn't have one, and in the double action configuration, so my first shot had to mean it. Everything after that was a very nice single action trigger pull. I did that on and off for a couple of years, switching between that 1911 little bitty officer size and a CZ PO1 for a few years. When I stopped doing that was I was getting into my truck one day, leaving my favorite gun store. I always carried cocked and locked. I got into my truck, no problem. Got out of the truck, got home, was taking the gun off, and realized either I had inadvertently left the safety off, meaning there was a very small amount of pressure between not having a bullet in my butt and having a bullet in my butt, or getting the safety back on. So that made me uncomfortable. So whether or not it was a me thing, or if I somehow worked the safety off in that hybrid holster, which isn't the most secure thing ever, I started to rethink that a little bit. So, bought a Kydex holster and decided I would be cool in Appendix carry that 1911 with the big extended beaver tail. Well, that's all well and good until you lean over and stab yourself in the gut too many times, and then you kind of forego that. So, went back to the hip, still wearing regular jeans, all that good stuff. Eventually, I decided that 7 rounds was not enough and wanted to be way more tactical. So unfortunately, as you can tell, I don't have the CZ PO1 anymore. I had other things I needed way worse, so that one went away, and I never really carried anything like that again in that configuration. So I went to this freaking behemoth and wore it Appendix. So right across here. Now in the video you can see that that sort of makes me look like I have a drunk guy pooch, like a little beer belly. But I also discovered that I should probably be wearing jeans that were more suited to carry. So you can tell I've had these long enough to the knees all blew out and got phone line and the rear pockets are starting to get holes, so I wore these a lot. But these are 5'11", I think, oh, I can't remember if they call them Defender or whatever, but basically they're 5'11" carry jeans, and they were like a godsend when it came to carrying concealed. I now do not buy any jeans that are not something like that. Those 5'11s have gotten way more expensive, so I actually found Vertex jeans not long after, and they do all the same things but are a little bit more affordable, in my opinion, probably a little better quality. They're a little thicker, they're gusseted, they stretch, they're comfortable, yeehaw. So if I can't stress anything enough in all this crap, it is get clothes that help you carry, or you probably won't continue to carry. If you have dedicated, like if all your jeans are these like Defender jeans and stuff, they look decent, they're not like super tactical or anything like that, they just look like regular jeans, but they make everyday carry so much nicer. Another thing I did is I got away from the Bigfoot super heavy leather gun belt and went to this Blue Force Gear, I'm assuming it's some kind of nylon blend gun belt that is extremely rigid, but it is also very light and thin. And then you have this really nifty Cobra buckle that's like putting a seatbelt on and has crazy high strength. This works great too. So in conjunction with those particular pants, awesome. Big thing, lots of weight. You need stuff to support it and make that carrying a little bit easier, or you're just not going to do it after a while. One other thing, speaking of that, I don't ever not wear an undershirt. There's a lot of people manlier and tougher than me that don't mind their gun just rubbing on their stomach all day and sweating all over their stuff. I'm not one of those people. A lot of my undershirts actually have like little wear holes about where I would carry Appendix all the time, just because that's where the gun's rubbing all day. I find it to be far more comfortable, and I am much more likely to carry if I'm comfortable. Alright, moving on. This freaking hog. This was a huge departure from what I was doing because I had no weapon light with anything I had before. I now have similar capacity to when I was carrying the PO1, but I actually really liked the Appendix carry because I felt like I had complete control of the gun at all times. When you're carrying on your like 4 o'clock, if you lean over, you got a big gun butt sticking out in the air like that, and everybody in the store can see you. If you reach up high, it gets stuck on your gun, and you have to constantly like fix it. With Appendix carry, it's all right here in front of you. At least you know what's going on at all times. You're not like flashing your gun all over the place. Again, this sticks out. You can see it in the video, but this is a Glock 19, because that's what all the cool kids had, with a TLR1 that you can see sticks out quite a bit. This holster setup was literally like wearing a cup. Like I could smack myself. If someone just punched me directly in the groin, it would hit this and not me. You also had a spare reload right there, very easy to get. So you're carrying 30 rounds right there on your front in a very shootable, very controllable package. This is big. It's not for everybody. Again, had a big gut. Leaning all the way over became kind of a problem, so I developed the habit of just squatting anytime I needed to get down, so I could keep my midsection straighter and not be stabbed. The Glock was nice for that because it's just square on the back. It doesn't have a great big beaver tail hook sticking out to stick you in the gut. So this was a go-to for probably, again, a couple of years. One day I got into my truck, and as I was lifting my leg to get into the truck, I pinched my goobers against that flashlight pretty good. So I yelped a little bit and straightened up, and shuffled around a little bit, and that was kind of awful. So after that, for whatever reason, this didn't seem all that appealing. I should note that I've kind of talked a little bit about holsters up to this point, but this is a tier 1, and that flexibility is wonderful. The claw here helps keep the belt pushed out, helps keep the gun tight and wrapped to your body to conceal a little better. So unfortunately, if you want to carry, it's generally a good idea to get a very good holster for that. This one is really well designed. It's a really good idea if you're going to do the whole like sidecar extra ammo thing. But as you can see, it is friggin' bulky, and I'm not a very big guy. But carried that way for a long time, never had anyone like run up and go, "I threw your gun," or anything like that. So mileage may vary. Now, around that time, this is probably 6-7 years ago maybe, stuff like this began to come out, where I have almost the same capacity, if I can get it out, as this big honking thing, but I have something much more concealable and much more comfortable to carry. So where I was carrying a Glock 19 for 15 rounds, this Hellcat, I've done something incorrectly. The Hellcat, you get a 13 round magazine plus 1, so 14 rounds. Now they've got even bigger and more, but this became very attractive to me for the size and comfort. And I still kept with a light and a light bearing holster in a package that is exceedingly smaller than this. Now, obviously don't have the reload attached to this, but you can get a little mag pouch that you can go on your hip or up front, wherever else you want it, that you can carry separately. So, carried a Hellcat for about a year. I tried it with an optic. I found that I kind of hate carrying, or a concealed carry gun with an optic on it. The thing filled up full of lint because I wear an undershirt and everything else. Because you're carrying it all day, every day, the shake awake thing really isn't, there's no point because it's always on. You had to kind of play the middle ground of what's going to be bright enough that I can see it if I run the light or it's daytime, and what's going to be dark enough that if I have to draw the thing, I'm not just blooming like crazy and have a huge red light when I should have a dot. So actually traded for just this fixed one because somebody wanted mine with the optic and all that good stuff, so sold it for a little bit more than what this cost me. Still could put my light on it, and found a holster company with the claw and everything that made that possible. That lasted about a year. My wife likes this. Pretty soon, this became her gun, because when your wife likes guns and you like guns, it's a good idea to make sure they still like guns, and if they show interest, you do that thing and allow them to continue to enjoy it. So she liked this, and it became hers. Now, with the Hellcat, I've not done a dedicated review over the Hellcat, but the grip size and geometry is such that I can get all the way around it quite a bit, and notice that when I draw, the thing is rolled left or right in my hand just a little bit. It wasn't super consistent for me. So after reading a crap load of reviews and everything, landed on the Shield Plus because it has better geometry. I've got an entire video on this thing, so I'm not going to like gush over it a ton. But again, this is actually just a We the People holster. It's nothing crazy. It does a good job. You can get the claw mount. Normally I carry there, appendix wise, because again, small enough, very comfortable with the claw. It stays to your body, hides pretty well. Recently had some lower abdominal stuff going on, so went to the 4 o'clock position with the Shield Plus. It hides exceedingly well and can wear the spare 13 or 15 or whatever round magazine capacity I want to on the other hip. And this is, in my hands, and to me, far more shootable than the Hellcat. So win-win. My wife gets a gun, I go get a new one. Life's great. So, all that being said, at one point, I'll give you some brown chicken, brown cow action. I enjoyed this belt, but that belt because of where I wore it and just because of the way that the buckle moves throughout the day, I started getting like tons of holes like I had been welding in my t-shirt or something, just all these like sprinkled little holes, and discovered that it was because that buckle was pinching like every time I'd get up or sit down and like plucking little holes in my shirt. So discovered Core belts, and this is by far my favorite belt, like bar none, all time. It is very, very rigid, so it carries weight really well and gives great support. And then the ratchet buckle system for carry, because when you stand up or sit down, things change. You can just pull that little trigger. It moves 1/4 of an inch at a time, and you can just snap a little pressure off, cool, stand up, give it a click, and life's great. I can't tell you enough how awesome this belt is. They didn't sponsor any of this crap. I just bought one because I read about them, thought they looked like a good idea. They are a awesome idea. I've had this belt for about 2 years now. It's just getting to the point where you can see like the metal from the finish wearing around the edges, but who cares? It works great. I think one of the biggest things about concealed carry that people screw up is you don't get a decent holster, you don't wear clothes that are conducive to carry, and you don't have a good belt. If you just go out and have like your regular big box store leather, thin belt, and your cardboard feeling Levi jeans and everything else, it don't work out as well as it could. And if it's not comfortable, you won't do it forever. You'll do it for a long time, but you won't do it forever. So, funny enough, I have actually come full circle in a few ways and had this holster here at the end with what I carry now, because I still carry this semi-regularly. If I'm in like athletic shorts, which is not very often, my legs will blind you, I will go back to like a belly band and this thing, because it's light enough and I can stick it tight enough to myself that I'm still armed, even though I'm not wearing the right clothing for it. I'm not wearing good shorts with a belt and carrying a gun around, but I can still have a gun. If I have to be dressed up very nice or anything like that, pocket holster is excellent. Again, still armed, downgraded some, but something is better than nothing, and I can still carry it without it being like a big obvious obnoxious thing. So what haven't I tried? I have not tried an ankle holster ever. To me, that just seems like a good backup rather than a primary, but if that's all you can get on you at the time or whatever, or if you really like it, it's better than nothing. Cool. I have not really ever done the like off-body carry. My wife does that from time to time. I'm not the biggest proponent of it because it's not attached to you. You don't have immediate control of it. And most people that are looking to steal things from you are trying to steal a purse or a bag. If that is slung on you, now you are on a leash with whoever has grabbed you, but at least it's slung on you. That's not as easy to get off. It's also a little slower on the draw because, again, it's not attached to you. There's things you have to do to get to it, but I have very limited experience in that, so I don't really feel like I should be talking about it. Overall, again, I already stressed it, wear clothing that is helpful. Vertex jeans, 511, whatever, even other clothing brands just have elastic in the material of the jeans. That is a huge benefit to being able to carry. It's so much more comfortable than wearing really starchy, cardboardy feeling, Levi type stuff, because that's all I used to wear. Started carrying, was like, this sucks, and switched gears. Get a good belt. You don't have to buy a Core belt. You don't have to buy a Blue Force gear. There's lots of brands that do this kind of thing. Get a good belt. It's a big difference. And you're going to have to play around to find stuff you like. I have gone through like 7 or 8 different guns and probably 4 different styles of carry until I finally landed on something that I like a lot and will reliably carry. I carry all the time, so it's not like I ever stopped, but after a while with certain things, it'd be like, okay, this is just, it's getting to be obnoxious and uncomfortable, so do what you can to make it more comfortable. If that means carry something tiny, tiny's better than nothing. Carry it. If it's a 22 pocket gun, that's not my first pick, but if that's what you'll carry, cool. The gun you have is always better than the one you left at home, so I can't beat you over the head with that one too much. But I'm rambling at this point. Thanks for checking back in. Sorry it's been so long. Glad to be back doing it. Thanks for watching Triple F Shooting. We'll see you in the next video.